In this lesson, we'll link to our 3D model and we'll create several perspective views. Alright, so what I'd like to do now is start working on some views, and I want to start off on our sheet here. If you come to pages, let's make sure we're on page here. And this should be the one for, not floor plans, but let's jump up to this one here. And this actually needs to be here. I'm going to go ahead and make this unique as well while we're here. So let's go back to layers real quick, and we'll go ahead and make this unique. So let's click out. I'm going to go ahead and click on unique, click on our element, right click, move to current layer, and now it's just going to strictly be on here. So once we have your title in place, go ahead and make it unique so it doesn't reappear again on every single page. So I'm going to double click on this one. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this one. This one needs to be our perspectives and elevations. So we'll say perspectives and elevations once again. Escape to accept, and we're in business. But I'm going to go ahead and title this particular page here. So we can go to pages, and I'm on this inside page. So if I wanted to title it, I can double click it, and I'm going to call this one Perspectives and Elevations. You know, we can go ahead and add the page number to this one. In our case, that's going to be A1. So I'm going to say A1 colon. There we go. Page A1, Perspectives and Elevations. So now we can start manipulating what we have here on the page. So I'm going to kind of select this, scroll out just a bit. And now what I want to do is I want to resize this to a nice small size, because what I would like to have is 4 perspective views on top, followed by 4 elevation views on bottom a little bit later. So I'm going to resize this, and for now, not really much science to it. I'm just going to kind of go with what feels good at this moment. So I'm going to resize it like so, kind of like we discussed. And if I want to move it, I'm going to hover over till I see my move icon, and I'm going to move this up to this top corner. Again, I'm going to kind of resize because I know that I'm going to need 4 views kind of going all the way through. And once I'm happy with the size that I'm going to use, and I know that this is actually what I'm going to use, I can scroll in here and we can now start creating perspective views. Well, how do we actually do that? Well, first I want to talk about linking to your model. So right now, we have this view here. It's basically a 2-dimensional view. But if you double click on it, you're now actually linked to your model, and you can actually float around and orbit around, and you can create all kinds of views, right? Pretty neat. That's best example of how linking to your model works. But I'm going to show you another one. If you jump back to Sketchup for me, back into our conceptual area here, our conceptual model, let's make a quick change, and I'm going to show you another good example of how linking works. So let's say we're in SketchUp and we do our conceptual design. We say we need to make a change, and let's make a really drastic change so it's obvious. So in my case, I'm going to hide this building, the exterior, and I just want to expose the structure. Let's go ahead and right click and hide. And once I have that in place, go ahead and save that. Because any change we need to make, and we want it to be present within our layout file, we need to make sure we save it. So make a change, save it. So once this is saved, I'm going to go back to layout, and I'm going to click on this view here. Now there's a couple of ways that we can actually go about updating this. So I'm going to show you both ways. So the first is highlight your element there. You go to File, and go down towards the middle of your menu here and go to Document Setup. You'll notice something. If you click on References, it'll actually bring up our conceptual model mixed use here. So what this means for us is, this lets me know that the status of this, it's out of date, and it lets me know the file. So if I come on here, click on it, I'm going to move this window out of the way, and I'm going to click on Update right here. You should see the structure or the face move, and we should only have structure in its place. And that's exactly what's going on. Now, this is going to be an awesome view for the structural plans that we're going to work on a little bit later. But for the architectural, I'm more concerned with what's going on with the outside. I want to see perspectives and elevations and see how it looks from the exterior. And on my structural plans, the letter S plans, we'll actually get into working with structure. But I'm going to show you the other way we can actually go about doing this. So I'm going to close this, and let's go back to that SketchUp model again. So now I'm going to go back to Edit, and I'm going to say unhide the last one, and it'll bring back my face. So now I'm going to say Save. Remember, any changes we make, we save. So once that's doing its business here, doing a little bit of thinking, I'm going to jump back to layout and I'm going to click this. Now, instead of going to file and taking this path, let's try this. Click your image, right click, and now go to update model reference. Same thing should happen here. Your building exterior should appear, and it did. So those are two ways that you can link to your model and manage the change that may happen when you're in the view. So now let's create a view, several views. And there's two ways you can really go about doing it. We're going to, for the architectural plans, we're going to go about actually jumping in, linking to our model, and creating a view. Now in our section plans, I'm going to show you how we can work with scenes and how we can load those up to actually create views as well. So for now, let's double click on it and let's create our first perspective. So once I find something that I'm really happy with, I'm going to go ahead and pretty much keep it set there. Now I want this to be pretty dramatic, kind of like we're looking from the ground up maybe. And I'm going to scroll out of here just a bit. So you could scroll in and out with your wheel. You can squeeze your wheel down and you can actually do your orbiting. But I want to make sure I get as much as I can of my model I can in there. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hit escape and it should kind of render out there. And there we go, we have our image. So what I want to do now is I want to set this up in a way to where I don't have this background. It's kind of distracting and I really only want to focus on my model. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we can mess around with some of the styles. So click on it and you can right click, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to styles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scroll up just a little bit more so you can see all those styles. So I'm going to right click, go to styles, and what I want to show you is how we can go to maybe a hidden line. So maybe we go, or actually shaded with textures will actually give us a color rendition here. So we'll say shaded with textures. Check that out. It kept our color and it also got rid of that background. So it looks like we just have our model in place. Pretty neat, huh? So this is really going to help you with your presentation. So I'm going to double click on this and I can see I've got some elements kind of hidden in the background, and that's probably some guidelines or something back there. But let's see if we can't hide those guys by doing this. And that's exactly what it is. It's guidelines. So if I want to get rid of this guideline, guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to go back, relink, and update with our model here. Let's give it a shot. So really quickly, I'm going to move this around some more. Try to get that perspective back that we had. Now I'm going to go back to my model here, and it's this guideline that's actually in the way. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to erase that guideline. So now I'm going to save it, go back to layout, right click, update model with my reference, and that dotted line should disappear in the background. And if it doesn't, we'll just go back one more time and see what the deal is. Maybe I'll go to view here and I'll get rid of guides. Make sure it's deselected here, and I'm going to say file, save, perfect, and I'm going to come back here. Now let's see if we can't do it from the other way. We'll go file, document setup, mixed use out of date, update, and hopefully this should get rid of our reference line back there, and it did. So we'll close out, and then we got rid of that reference line that was a little bit annoying back there. So we have our first perspective in place here. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how we can create some more perspectives, and we're going to play around with some shadows. So we'll make some more images in the next lesson.